Imagine a device small enough to fit inside your brain. A device that can listen to your thoughts, or at least your brain's electrical whispers, and adjust itself to calm anxiety, stop tremors, or even stabilize your mood. Sounds like science fiction? It's not. This is real. And it's called Adaptive Deep Brain Stimulation, or Adaptive DBS. One of the most revolutionary treatments emerging in neurology today. In this video, we're diving deep into what adaptive DBS really is, how it's transforming the lives of people with Parkinson's disease, and how it might change the future of mental and emotional health as we know it. Just pay attention to each parts of this video. But before we start, if you're passionate about brain science, medical innovation, or simply curious about how technology and the human mind connect, make sure to subscribe, like, and turn on notifications so you don't miss more groundbreaking neuroscience stories like this one. And tell me in the comments below, would you trust a brain implant to help regulate your emotions or movement? Your answer might surprise you. Part 1. Understanding Parkinson's disease. Let's begin with the basics. Parkinson's disease is what we call a neurodegenerative disorder. That means that little by little, the brain's nerve cells begin to weaken, and over time, they die off. It's a slow and gradual process, one that can take years, even decades, before the signs fully appear. Now, deep inside the brain, there's a small but mighty region called the substantia nigra. It doesn't look like much, just a dark cluster of neurons, but it plays a vital role in how we move. This area is responsible for producing a chemical messenger known as dopamine. Dopamine is the brain's movement messenger. It carries signals that tell your muscles when and how to move, almost like the brain's internal rhythm keeper. Every time you reach for a cup, smile, or take a step, dopamine is quietly doing its work behind the scenes. But in Parkinson's disease, those dopamine-producing cells begin to break down. As dopamine levels drop, that rhythm starts to falter. The brain's messages to the body become slower, weaker, and less coordinated. That's when the symptoms start to appear. You might notice a tremor, a subtle shaking in the hands or arms, or maybe a growing stiffness that makes everyday movements feel heavier. Movements can become slower, steps shorter, and even simple tasks, like buttoning a shirt or writing, take much more effort. Some people also experience balance problems, which can make walking or standing tricky and sometimes unsafe. But here's something that's often overlooked. Parkinson's isn't just a movement disorder. It also affects how a person feels, sleeps, and thinks. There are what we call non-motor symptoms, and they can be just as challenging, sometimes even more so. People may experience deep anxiety, depression, fatigue, insomnia, or subtle memory changes. Imagine waking up each day not only fighting your body, but also your mood and your energy. For many living with Parkinson's, these hidden symptoms are the hardest to explain and the hardest to manage. For decades, doctors relied mostly on medications designed to replace or mimic dopamine. And while these drugs can help, they're not a cure. Over time, their effects can fade and side effects can appear. That's why scientists began asking new questions. What if instead of only adding chemicals, we could reach into the brain itself and directly help those neural circuits work the way they're meant to? And that question, that single idea, led to one of the most remarkable breakthroughs in modern neurology. Deep brain stimulation. Part 2. The birth of deep brain stimulation. Deep brain stimulation, often called DBS, first appeared in the late 1990s, and it completely changed how we think about treating Parkinson's disease. In its simplest form, DBS involves placing a tiny electrode deep within the brain. It's usually implanted in areas like the subthalamic nucleus or the globus pallidus, two regions that help control movement and coordination. Once that electrode is in place, it begins sending gentle electrical impulses to those specific areas. Those impulses don't shock or burn, they guide. They help reset abnormal brain signals that cause tremors, stiffness, and slow movements. Think of it this way. Your brain is like a beautifully tuned orchestra. Every neuron, every signal has its part to play in perfect harmony. But with Parkinson's, that rhythm starts to fall apart. The notes go out of sync. The beat becomes irregular. And that's where deep brain stimulation steps in. It works like a neural metronome, bringing the brain's rhythm back into alignment, restoring balance, and helping the mind and body move together again. For many people living with Parkinson's, DBS has been nothing short of life-changing. It can transform trembling hands into steady ones. It can return smoother movement, clearer speech, and, perhaps most importantly, a renewed sense of control over their own body. But, as with every early invention, the first generation of DBS had its limits. Those systems delivered continuous, unchanging stimulation, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, whether the brain needed it or not. Imagine a light switch that can never be turned off. The light stays on, doing its job, but wasting energy all the while. That's how traditional DBS worked. It helped, but it wasn't efficient, and in some cases the constant stimulation could even lead to unwanted side effects. So researchers began to wonder, what if that same device could listen to the brain? What if it could detect the earliest hints of a tremor, sense when symptoms were returning, and automatically adjust itself, increasing or lowering stimulation in real time? That single question sparked a new chapter in neuroscience, a chapter that led directly to the creation of something smarter, more responsive, and far more human-like. That's how adaptive deep brain stimulation was born. Part 3. How adaptive DBS works. Here's where it gets truly fascinating. Traditional deep brain stimulation, or DBS, is a bit like a one-way street. Electricity flows only in one direction, from the implanted device straight into the brain. It delivers stimulation continuously, whether the brain needs it or not. But adaptive DBS completely changes that idea. It transforms that one-way street into a two-way conversation, a living dialogue between the brain and the device. Because this system doesn't just stimulate the brain, it also listens to it. It records what's happening inside, interprets those signals, and then responds intelligently. The implant is always watching the brain's electrical rhythms, especially patterns known as local field potentials, the tiny waves of activity created by groups of neurons firing together. These patterns are like fingerprints of brain function. When the device detects an abnormal rhythm, something linked to a tremor, a moment of rigidity, or even an emotional change, it reacts immediately. In just milliseconds, it adjusts the stimulation level to help the brain regain balance. That process forms what scientists call a closed-loop system, one that can sense, decide, and act all on its own. Think of it like a smart thermostat, but instead of managing temperature, it manages brain activity. When the brain becomes too active, the device cools things down. When the activity slows too much, it gives a gentle boost. It's a continuous dance of correction and balance, subtle, quiet, and incredibly precise. And behind that precision lies one of the most remarkable tools of modern medicine, artificial intelligence. AI algorithms analyze those complex electrical patterns, recognizing what's normal for each individual and deciding how much stimulation is needed in that exact moment. No more guessing. No more one-size-fits-all. The therapy becomes personalized, adapting to each person's unique brain rhythms, second by second, day by day. This intelligent responsiveness doesn't just make treatment more accurate, it also makes it more efficient. Because the device only works when it's truly needed, the battery lasts longer, the patient feels more comfortable, and side effects are reduced. Adaptive DBS represents a quiet revolution, one where the machine doesn't just act on the brain, it partners with it. A delicate, high-tech harmony between human biology and modern engineering. Part 4, Real Stories, Real Impact. Let's take a moment to understand what all of this really means, not just in theory, but for real people. Because behind every brain scan, behind every electrode and algorithm, there's a human life, someone living day to day with Parkinson's disease. In the most recent studies, patients treated with adaptive deep brain stimulation showed not only stronger control of their tremors, but something even more surprising. A visible lift in their mood, their energy, and their overall emotional stability. These weren't just numbers on a graph. These were changes that people felt. Moments where their hands no longer shook when they reached for a glass, and their minds felt calmer, lighter, more balanced. One particular study from the University of California revealed something truly remarkable. Researchers noticed that certain patterns of brain waves, specifically changes in theta wave activity within the basal ganglia, were directly tied to anxiety in patients with Parkinson's disease. In simpler terms, the brain was sending out a signal, an electrical fingerprint of stress and unease. And when the adaptive DBS system detected that specific signal, it responded immediately. It adjusted its stimulation subtly, precisely, and as it did, patients began to feel calmer, more centered, more at ease. Imagine what that really means. A brain implant capable of sensing anxiety before you even consciously feel it, and then stepping in quietly to help you find calm again. It's almost like the device understands you, not emotionally, but electrically. It senses the storm before it hits and restores balance before chaos begins. This is the point where neuroscience begins to merge with emotion, where technology touches something profoundly human. It's not just medicine anymore. It's a conversation between biology and emotion, between signal and feeling. And it's both exciting and deeply philosophical. Because for the first time, we're not just treating disease. We're gently shaping the human experience itself. We're learning that healing the body can also mean harmonizing the mind. That by listening to the brain's quiet electrical language, we can help people not only move better, but feel better. Part 5. The future of adaptive DBS. The potential of adaptive deep brain stimulation stretches far, far beyond Parkinson's disease. What began as a breakthrough for one condition is now opening doors across all of neurology. Researchers around the world are testing adaptive DBS in a wide range of disorders, each connected by the same simple idea, that every thought, every emotion, and every action begins as an electrical rhythm inside the brain. Imagine using that rhythm to heal. Studies are now exploring adaptive DBS for epilepsy, where sudden bursts of abnormal activity cause seizures, a system that can detect the earliest flicker of that storm and gently calm it before it breaks. It's also being tested for major depression, a condition where certain brain networks fall into patterns of over or underactivity. Adaptive DBS could bring those circuits back into balance, not by changing who a person is, but by restoring how the brain communicates. In obsessive-compulsive disorder, it may help quiet the relentless loops of intrusive thoughts that trap the mind in repetition. For Tourette's syndrome, it could help smooth the sudden bursts of movement or sound that people cannot control. And even in chronic pain, researchers are finding ways to use the same principle to ease signals of suffering before they ever reach full intensity. All of this points toward a new concept, something scientists call precision neurology. It's the idea that treatment should never be one size fits all. Instead, it should be tuned, moment by moment, to the unique electrical signature of each individual brain. Adaptive DBS is leading that movement. Every brain is different, every signal, every pattern, every emotion. So the future lies in devices smart enough to recognize those personal rhythms and respond to them in real time. And as artificial intelligence continues to evolve, these systems are becoming even more powerful. AI can learn the specific patterns that predict a patient's tremor, their anxiety, or their pain, and act before symptoms ever appear. Imagine technology that doesn't just react to illness, but anticipates it. That's not the distant dream of science fiction anymore. It's happening in laboratories and hospitals right now. The future of adaptive DBS is not just about treating the brain. It's about understanding it, learning from it, and ultimately working in harmony with it. Part 6. Ethical questions and human reflections. But with great innovation, always comes great responsibility. As we step deeper into this new era of brain-machine connection, we have to pause and ask the questions that truly matter. If a device can sense our mood, predict our emotions, or even change how we feel, should machines have the power to influence our emotions? It sounds like science fiction, but it's becoming science fact. When a device can calm anxiety, lift sadness, or regulate thought patterns, we enter delicate territory. Where do we draw the line between therapy and personality control? And another question, one that's both scientific and deeply personal. Who owns the data? Every adaptive DBS system records thousands of brain signals, intimate patterns of thought, emotion, and response. That's not just medical information. That's you. Your moods, your reactions, your rhythms, all translated into data. So, who should have the right to access it? The doctor? The company that built the device? The patient? These are not technical questions, they're moral ones. And they sit at the heart of a field known as neuroethics, the branch of ethics that studies the impact of neuroscience and brain technology on our identity, our privacy, and our humanity. Neuroethicists remind us that as we build smarter machines, we must also build stronger values. We need clear policies, not just to protect data, but to protect dignity. Because technology, no matter how advanced, should always serve the human being, not the other way around. The human brain is sacred. It's not just a network of circuits to be tuned or optimized. It's the seat of memory, creativity, emotion, and soul, the essence of who we are. So, as scientists and engineers push the boundaries of what's possible, society must walk beside them, guiding, questioning, and ensuring that progress never comes at the cost of humanity. And if we do it right, if we develop adaptive DBS with transparency, empathy, and wisdom, it could become one of the most beautiful examples of healing through technology. A partnership between mind and machine, not to control us, but to free us from suffering. Part 7, Reflections and Takeaways. So, what have we truly learned today? First and foremost, we've seen that Parkinson's disease is far more than a movement disorder. It affects millions of people worldwide, not only in their physical abilities, but in the very core of their emotional lives. Tremors, stiffness, and slowed movements are just part of the story. The disease also touches mood, anxiety, sleep, and cognition, aspects of life that are deeply personal, often invisible, and just as challenging as the physical symptoms. Next, we explored the journey of treatment, from traditional deep brain stimulation, which brought hope, to adaptive DBS, which brings control. This is the difference between helping someone move and helping someone regain autonomy over their body and mind. Adaptive DBS allows the brain and the device to communicate in real time, adjusting stimulation precisely when it's needed. This leads us to a profound insight. By creating a real-time feedback loop between the brain and technology, medicine is evolving into something truly intelligent. We are no longer simply treating symptoms after they occur. We are anticipating them, responding dynamically, and personalizing care at a level never before possible. And that's where the true revolution begins. As neuroscience and artificial intelligence continue to merge, we unlock new possibilities. Possibilities that are exciting, transformative, and full of promise. But along with those possibilities come responsibilities. We must use this technology wisely, ethically, and with respect for the human experience. Adaptive DBS teaches us that healing is not just about curing disease. It's about enhancing quality of life, restoring independence, and supporting emotional well-being. It's about creating harmony between biology and technology. So, when we look to the future, we see a world where the brain is not simply treated. It is understood, supported, and guided with compassion. Where medicine doesn't just react, but interacts intelligently. Where patients regain more than function. They regain control, dignity, and hope. These are the key takeaways. Parkinson's affects both body and mind. Adaptive DBS gives precise control. Real-time brain-machine feedback is redefining treatment. And the partnership of AI and neuroscience brings both vast possibilities and important responsibilities. The human brain, the most complex structure in the known universe, is finally beginning to talk back to us. And as we learn to listen, we're discovering new ways to heal, connect, and evolve. So what do you think? Would you trust your brain to communicate with a machine if it meant living a better life? Let me know your thoughts below. I love reading your ideas and insights. And don't forget, like, subscribe, and share this video to help more people understand the incredible future of neuroscience. Together, we can build a world where the mind and machine work as one, not against each other.